what could you say about our economy right now, where we are right now?
Well, you can say from a labor market perspective, what you can say is that the national economy has half recovered. So we lost 20 million jobs in March and April, and we've gotten 10 million of them back. And the pace of picking those jobs back up has really slowed a lot. So whereas at the beginning, we were picking up millions of jobs every month to recover, at the moment we're picking up, in the mid hundreds of thousands, which is fine, right? It would be an outstanding month in normal times, but in pandemic times, when you have 10 million jobs to recover, it's just not quick enough. Tennessee has done better. I would say Tennessee has more than half recovered. Tennessee overall is seeing about roughly 4.5 or 5% employment losses relative to where we were in February. So we're down 5%-ish. In Memphis and Nashville, things are a little bit worse than that. In East Tennessee, and in particular in Knoxville, things are way better. So Knoxville itself is only down about 2% from where we were in February.
This data, this unemployment data, is month to month, right? And it's usually a month behind.
Well, there are two different things. There's a weekly unemployment insurance number that comes out every Thursday, which is, of course, weekly. And then there is this monthly jobs report, which will come out tomorrow morning at 8:30. And those data are good. The monthly jobs report, we don't have any major concerns about the quality of those data. And they remain really the hallmark metric from the federal government about how we're doing. It's just that monthly is not fast enough in a pandemic.
This third wave of cases that we're seeing around the country, and hospitals filling up, it's hitting East Tennessee. Los Angeles is on a stay-at-home order right now. How soon will we see the impact of that? And do you have any, predictions about what that will do to consumer confidence, to the economy looking ahead?
Yeah, it looks like it's having an impact on consumer confidence and on consumer spending. Now, of course, what's offsetting that is that it is a holiday time. People are spending money on Christmas presents, on holiday activities. They're different than they were before. They're not in store as often as they were before, but so far online purchases have been robust. One thing that has really been surprising this whole pandemic long has been the amount of consumption switching. So consumers have been taking money out of budget categories that they typically spend on, such as leisure and hospitality, and switching it into other categories, including housing and other things. So consumer spending so far has been really robust. You're right to ask whether it can remain that way with the current level of virus, but so far it has been more robust than we might have expected.
And the vaccine, obviously, when that vaccine is distributed to majority of Americans, things can look up. But the optimism surrounding a vaccine turning the corner, is that having an effect on the economy?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the way you ought to think about it is that the first people who receive the vaccine aren't going to change their behavior, right? So those who live in long-term care facilities and healthcare workers are working all out. They don't have time to spend money. But the second tranche of people are older adults and those with pre-existing conditions. And those folks have been holed up at home since March. And you should expect that once they get vaccinated, they're going to unleash the purse strings, right? They've been inhibited for this long, and you should expect them to really exhibit some consumer spending behavior that will serve to boost the overall economy and probably boost employment. So yes, I think there's a lot of optimism, and I think it's well founded.
Despite the above-average economic recovery in our region and state, the virus is still ravaging other parts of the country.
The biggest impacts have been in leisure and hospitality, but also in the energy sector. So people who are working in mining, logging, and oil production, those sectors have really been hard hit as people have changed their behavior and they're not consuming as much, for example, as much gasoline as they had before. So that's the small sector of the economy, but it's been really hard hit. Some of the sectors that were hit early in the pandemic have largely recovered, and that would include education services, which is doing a lot better than it was at the beginning, and also sort of non-emergency medical really took a hit. So dental offices, medical offices closed if they were not essential, and those sectors have again done really well. The third part of the economy that continues to struggle is state and local government. That hasn't been so as true in Tennessee as it has been in other places. But if you look at some of the bigger states like California and New York, employment in the public sector is down substantially.
She doesn't rely on the unemployment rate because she says it doesn't include everyone.
And so what you might assume is that, gosh, that means there's a lot of kind of excess labor supply. So if I advertised a job tomorrow, I would get 1 million applications. It's not true. There's not a lot of excess labor supply, meaning there aren't a lot of people out there looking for a job who can't find one, especially at a lower than bachelor's degree level of education. And what that tells you is that people are consciously choosing not to work, not necessarily because unemployment insurance is so generous, because it's not generous at the moment, but they're choosing that because they're either concerned about the health implications of working, or they have childcare situation they need to take care of.
The country is still short 10 million jobs from before the pandemic, but she explains that doesn't mean we have 10 million people looking for a job.
In August and September, when schools failed to reopen, women and minority workers were hit hardest. They left the labor force to deal with their children. Women, because women, disproportionately carry childcare responsibilities in the household, and minorities largely because lower income households tend to struggle to be able to pay for childcare while they go to work. So if their kids are not at school, then they need to be at home taking care of their kids. So there was a huge drop off in labor force participation in those groups in August and September, and a lot of that has not recovered. What you're hearing right now from Knox County School Superintendent is that he's worried about keeping Knox County schools open. And if you close Knox County schools and send these students virtual, it's not just about the kids' education, it's also the parents' ability to work. And so you should worry about the labor force implications of that decision.
She agrees with latest relief proposals that exclude direct payments to all Americans and instead supports a targeted effort.
Yeah, so I think my perspective on the stimulus is a little bit different than most. I actually think that the current negotiations are a result of the positive news on the vaccine. And I know that seems counterintuitive, but basically I think what the hesitancy you were hearing out of Washington earlier in the fall was that people didn't want to provide a bridge to nowhere. They didn't want to keep supporting individuals in unemployment or firms, small businesses in the PPP program. They didn't want to continue doing that if they didn't know how long it was going to last. So they didn't want to write a blank check. And now that you have some sense about when this thing is going to be over, I think you're actually seeing Congress kind of open the purse strings a little bit and say, okay, well, actually, probably we're only going to have to provide this for the next 6, worst case 9 months, if you think about a restaurant, for example.